All
So,
right.
I am here today with Jeff, and we've been working together on election integrity stuff for a couple years now, since 2022. We've been meeting to talk about election integrity in Berks County. Recently, the group of people that we do this with has started using Eagle AI, and we've gotten from them a list of 1,100 or so voters who are registered in Berks County to vote and also registered in another county or another state. And we've presented that list to our commissioners and our Board of Elections, and I'm here with Jeff to talk about what's happened since then. So, how's that been going?
Well, it's a good question, but I don't know that anything has happened. Maybe the good thing is with the election integrity group in Berks County, there are a handful of those participants that are getting riled up. They think that our election board should respond to that. The last time there was an election board meeting, I addressed the election board. I let them know that I and others were aware that this list of 1,100 plus voters on the Berks County rolls are also on the voting rolls in other states or even other counties in Pennsylvania. So they should be removed from the rolls. And um, so I'm not sure the date. I think it's been 3 weeks now. That was 3 weeks ago that I addressed the board and just to let them know that we want them to take action on that. And I don't know what that action necessarily would be. It's possible that they could just send out letters to all those registered voters and let them know that they need to cancel their registration. I guess that would be the easiest way. If they're, uh, and I don't know other legal procedures that they might have to go through, but the bottom line is I think we deserve an answer. When you have voters on the rolls that should not be, it's an avenue for election theft, or it makes it possible to impersonate that person that has moved out of state, request a mail-in ballot on their behalf, and then vote that mail ballot. So it's one of those vulnerabilities in the system that would open the door to fraud.
So this was presented to them in a public meeting and by email, is that right?
Uh, when I make a public comment to the election board, I put it in writing 90% of the time. Sometimes I have spoken off the cuff. But in that case, in particular, I committed it to writing. And I had, on that occasion, I had also requested records from two election cycles and the last election cycle, some documents I wanted to inspect to have some questions answered about possible uh, issues with the machines and some other issues that were reported to reported to our team. Uh, uh, the poll watchers uh, do a report throughout the day when they are watching a poll on election day. And if they see any unusual or inappropriate or actions that are being done by the poll workers, or failures to um, follow the procedures and the law, we I learn of that through the reporting that is done. And so there were some questionable issues that went on each election, and I want to inspect the documents more closely to see if I can understand exactly what was going on and if there was something that was really bad or just um, a less than professional handling of situations.
Hmm.
Am I as clear as mud there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, that was a lot of information to go through. And
Mhm.
have you looked into uh, the particulars of any of these duplicate voter registrations that we got? Any of those 1100?
I did not, and I trust that the party who we both know, and he wanted to be anonymous at this till this point. I trust that the software tool that he used was a reliable tool. And my understanding as a, let's say, a computer, as far as computer issues go, I am challenged, and I'm not really qualified to speak too much on this point. But as that person and I had discussed, this tool was able to, uh, I guess, go into the voter registration rolls in other states and to the change of address uh, database that the post office uses, and also the Berks County voter registration rolls. And so the program was able to identify these 1,100 plus voters on the rolls, actively on the rolls in Berks County, who uh, who are also well, they have moved. It's not like they the I believe there's a move date, so they have moved to these different states and then are registered in those particular states. So they are double registered. And unless there's a reason to mistrust the tool that was used, unless there's some nefarious manipulation of data that was done by this software tool or those who design it, I should say, um, I can't speak to that. When I addressed the board, I said I I just thought that we had a right to know how they were going to deal with that information, because it was a potential problem, and I wanted them to either say, well, we checked each of those addresses, and the new address is not the same person, although that I think they were using the date of birth to confirm. Uh, if they can make a case that they're all fraudulent, it's all fraudulent data. Well, that's one thing, but I'd like to know, and I think a number of other people would like to know, what are they going to do about it?
Right.
If indeed they are double registered, they should be taken off the Berks County rolls if they indeed moved.
And knowing what I know of the commissioners and the Board of Elections, I would expect they almost certainly will double check all of this data before they actually take people off the rolls too. So
Oh, they'd
people
have
who
to,
might
yes,
yeah people who might be concerned about getting false positives, they're going to do their due diligence with that.
absolutely, and they should. We don't want anybody taken off the roll that should be on the roll.
Yeah.
And I cannot, I don't, as far as the voters go, I think this is what happens. You move, there's so many things that you have to take care of when you move. It would be perfectly understandable that you would not take your name off of the Berks County roll. Uh, Now, I think, and I'm not absolutely certain of this. The the statute does say that a voter certainly can remove their own name, and it does read that if they move out of state, they should be taken off the roll. But if there is case law from court rulings that say that they have to be given notice, well, maybe there's something that I don't know there, and that's fine. If they had to send out letters to both addresses and have the voter uh, uh, affirm that they did move and in writing request that their name be taken off the Berks County roll, maybe that procedure they have to go through. But I think that the commissioners should, and that is the election board. I think the election board should let the public know this is what we are doing to address that particular issue that was brought to our attention. Now, the election board didn't meet, like I said, the last 2 weeks. I guess we didn't have election board, so um, hopefully they'll meet next Thursday. They usually meet on Thursdays.
Yeah. Just speaking anecdotally, I'm friends with a judge of elections who's been in the same precinct for a number of elections in a row. That person has gotten to know a lot of the voters there just through small talk when they vote, and heard from the voters that family members of the voters that are registered in that poll book that the judge has access to have moved away years ago. And this person has told me year after year they notify the higher ups that this list of people has moved away, and they're still on the rolls election after election. So I definitely think that Berks County could be doing more to keep on top of this, and it is important.
Is that person willing to go public with that type of observation?
I don't believe so. I'd have to check on that.
I think a problem here is that the election board will not make any changes. I think, for instance, if you started removing people from the voter rolls, I think it's possible that uh, Democrat leadership in Berks County might perceive that and might try to characterize that as a voter suppression.
Definitely.
Now, I would disagree with that characterization, but I can see that is how that would be understood. And as far as the electors in Berks County as a whole, it depends on how you would spin this. I think there are enough people in Berks County have that do suspect that the 2020 election may have been rigged in that um, uh, um, fake ballots or unlawful ballots, mail ballots, were used to affect the outcome of the election. And uh, uh, the mainstream media has um, rejected that and just characterized the Republicans, and I guess a lot of them were mostly Republicans that were saying that that election was stolen, and um, but uh, and rightfully so. If fake voters or imposters are voting on behalf of people who have moved or dead people or people who don't even exist, um, that's going to affect the outcome of election, and that's voter suppression because the votes of the legitimate residents, the legitimately registered voters, those votes are diluted by the injection of fraudulent ballots into the system. And, and I don't know how many people are aware of or actually watched the movie 2000 Mules. It's a production that shows you that what
Yep,
I
I have
guess is
seen that one.
old fashioned ballot stuffing, where people unlawfully have collected uh, maybe 10 or more ballots at a time and put them into the ballot boxes. And some of them were paid for by uh, entities other than government. Uh, and they had made numerous trips, and they were paid by the number of ballots that they were able to put into the ballot boxes.
Yep.
So that's fraud. Anybody who participated in that at any level should be held accountable. Not just the mules, but those who paid the mules and those who, in any other way, were complicit with that kind of an operation.
Right. And I guess another thing you were talking about earlier about how the Democrats are going to spin it. I do. It's unfortunate to say, but I imagine that something on the commissioners' minds is how the local news outlets are going to spin this if they do start taking voters off the voter rolls, and how many voters are going to listen to that.
Exactly. And it could be a career ender for, well, right. If the two Republican commissioners on the election board were to uh, agree with and publicly uh, discuss that voter roll cleanup is going on, then um, that could be the end of their career. Because if the general public believes that that is voter suppression, and that these voters on the rolls are being hurt and disenfranchised, if that's what the takeaway is, then they're going to be outraged, and they're going to hold those Republican election board members and commissioners responsible for that. So it is important that the news is reported accurately.
Yeah. Yeah, and even with the vote on the SAVE Act that went through the U.S. House, I think it was yesterday, or maybe the day. I think it was yesterday, and how many people voted against a bill that would essentially keep illegal aliens from registering to vote, or at least give counties the tools to prevent that.
Am I correct, Mitch? That bill did pass the House, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe Biden said that he would veto that.
That was my understanding. I heard that reported. Yes. And the Senate is probably going to bury it for sure anyway. So.
Right. Something else I do have on the screen here is a tweet from Scott Pressler yesterday. I'll read this out. If you can show me evidence of illegal aliens, non citizens, currently on the voter rolls in Pennsylvania, my organization, Early Vote Action, will file an immediate audit with any of the counties in violation of state law. It will be swift and will make it very public. I'm excited about that, and I sent that over to the people who we know who manage the Eagle AI Pennsylvania distribution. So hopefully something will move ahead with that. It would be exciting to see legal action protecting the vote, keeping people who shouldn't be on the voter rolls, people who aren't citizens, off the rolls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what that tool could do as far as identifying those who are non citizens but lawfully in the United States because they should not be on the voter rolls. And of course, if they're illegal, um, if there's a way to identify them, prove that they're not a citizen. But the problem is that it's an honor system on the application for registration. They do have to produce either, uh, well, I think it's a social security number or driver's license, and they have to affirm under penalties of perjury that they are a citizen. Now, my guess is that there's no efforts to enforce that, and there's no real proof that's required. And I think you do have to have proof. If you have a birth certificate, even if you lost it, you can get a replacement birth certificate. I had to do that when I applied for a commercial driver's license because I guess my original birth certificate might have just been a copy, photocopy. I guess I lost it or whatever. I don't remember now, but I had to go to Harrisburg and get a replacement birth certificate. So that would prove your citizenship, and then your naturalization papers would prove your citizenship if you uh, were not born in the United States, of course. So, but I think it's a reasonable thing to when you register that you have to prove that you are a citizen. Now, I know that some localities, some states, I guess, permit non citizens to vote in local elections. Um, if the locale, the municipality, the city, the borough, if the lawful residents of that borough are okay with that, I would say I guess that's not an issue. But uh, I could see where the residents of any particular local jurisdiction might not be happy with the fact that just because a, a state legislative body had permitted the uh, illegal residents, the unlawful residents, to also participate in the local elections. I could see where that would be an issue.
Yeah. I I imagine the county has some way that they are able to, or at least that they're supposed to be checking that. I don't know exactly how that process goes on once the county has the voter registration application paper. I've looked over
Well,
the application.
as far as citizenship, I don't think so. If you have the required IDs, and I'd have to go back and read the statute on that. There's all you could also go onto the state website because the training videos for the inspectors, they get into, well, that's not registration. That would just be for the uh, uh, ID, uh, the valid forms of ID for the first time voters in a district. They have to show a valid ID, and there's many possibilities there. But as far as the registration goes, I'd have to read the statute again. But I think it's either the social security number or the license, the driver's license. And from what I understand, illegal aliens are getting social security numbers. So, um, and illegal residents can also get a driver's license. Now, I believe it's in the driver's license, it's supposed to indicate whether or not they are a legal resident or not. But absolutely certain of that. So
Hmm. I am happy that we are seeing something like that bill that just went through the House, because I it feels like something that we wouldn't have seen a few years ago. I think,
that's good. I mean,
yeah,
I'm encouraged. The Chip Roy, I think, was involved with that. Mike Johnson, Kennedy, from the Senate. Um, I forget the other the other co-signers, but yeah, it does have promise. Now I didn't read it, or what they were. I didn't read it. I just read an article or so about it. The question I would have is, is this going forward, or will all registrations be need to be challenged, or recalibrated, or whatever? You know, how many illegal residents already have voter IDs or are already registered to vote if they're non-citizens? And are you going to go back and correct that, or is this just going forward? See, I don't know. I don't know the details as far as the bill goes. Do you?
I don't know those details either. I'm just
Yeah.
looking up how many congressmen voted for and against that as we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
216 Republicans and 5 Democrats voted to pass it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew there were some Democrats that crossed the party line there, which is good.
Good for them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did send an email to my own Democrat representative about that, and I looked it up later. That congressman voted against it. I think we
And
emailed about that
are,
one
are
time. I think we had
you're
the
you're
same
in
thing.
are you in the sixth? You're in the sixth congressional district, right? Or no?
Houlihan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm. Oh, so she did vote against it.
Right. She did.
I was
Yep.
pretty sure. I sent her an email too.
Yep. I checked the box that I want to reply, so I'm interested to see what that will look like. It'll probably be a few weeks from now, knowing them. Would be fun to see how she justifies voting against this.
Well, I've never been satisfied with her answer. Her office is very good at getting back to people, but I've never been satisfied with her answers, especially in writing.
Hmm. Well, I think that's all we plan to talk about for now, so I guess the takeaways are that we've submitted these 1,100 names to the Berks County Board of Elections, and we're still waiting for their reply on that to see if and what they're going to do.
Right, and I think they're
Yeah,
correct, and I do think there are some uh, patriots in our election integrity group that will remind the board at the next public meeting that we do want an answer as far as how they will be dealing with that information.
right.
And I do think the board needs to know that enough people are watching this, and they do want some action taken here. Yes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as well to see uh, to look up and see how many of those names actually voted in the upcoming election after the election. But at that point, where the goal is to get some kind of action on this before the election. But if they do remain on the voter rolls after the election, it'll be interesting to see how many of them vote.
Yeah, we now right with that particular list, we can more easily um, check that against the cast vote log or whatever it's called, right? To find out if any of those uh, did indeed vote, right? Of course, it'll be after the fact if they vote by mail anyway. There's no way. There's no way that ballot could be retrieved. Of course, the way the system is set up now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for coming on. Let me just check one last time if we have any comments. I don't see any. Yep. So I know that you have to get off now, so we can log off here. And thank you for coming and talking.
All right, Mitch. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right. Have a good evening. All right.